Morning. Welcome to all for today's webinar. I'm Suresh Iyengar, Business Advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Center, the leading provider of assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, which allows us to offer services at no cost to you, entrepreneurs and business owners. Today's webinar is presented by Stacy Kildal, and it's titled Step by Step, Connecting Bank or Credit Card Account to Bank Feed in QBO. A quick reminder, we will be recording this webinar and then adding it to our YouTube channel. Today's webinar will be interactive, so please feel free to raise your hand, which is the small button at the bottom if you have a question or comment. Again, our presenter is Stacy Kildal, who is an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor, the first one certified in QuickBooks Online, and the first to pass Intuit's payroll certification exam. She's been a member of Intuit's trainer writer network since 2005 and is celebrating her 20th year running her Michigan-based bookkeeping firm, Kildal Services. She has 6 cats, 2 kids, 1 husband, and enjoys biking, hiking, kayaking, and snowmobiling. Welcome, Stacy. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As you can see, I have a couple cats that have decided to show up. This orange one is Yoda. He's our oldest one. He's very nosy. And the other one that just showed up was Frank. So thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to talk about bank feeds. It's one of my favorite features in QuickBooks Online. I do want to take a minute to thank the North Central Texas SBDC Center. Everybody that I have worked with here in this group is amazing. There is so much that your local SBDC has to offer, tons of resources to really not just help you start your business, but to help you keep going and growing your business. So please make sure that you go to their website and check out all of the other resources as well as the other trainings that they have, or give them a call and schedule an appointment and see what they have to offer. I cannot say enough good things about all of the local SBDC centers. And especially you guys. You are one of my favorites. I love working with you guys. So Suresh did a really good job introducing me. My name is Stacy Kildal. I've owned and operated Kildal Services since about 2003. The LLC was officially formed in 2005, but I've been using QuickBooks in some way, shape, or form for quite a while, since even before QuickBooks Online became a thing. And I was a trainer for Intuit for 19 years. I worked with the training team to help prepare and deliver, create and deliver training content to other accounting professionals. So getting into this, we're talking about the special features of QuickBooks Online and the bank feeds. We're specifically talking about QuickBooks Online. One of the things to kind of mention about it is you can connect an unlimited number, regardless of what subscription level you have, whether it's Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, Advanced. You can connect 1 or 10 different credit card and or bank accounts to your bank feeds in QBO. So if I have one client who has 3 different bank accounts and they have I think 5 different credit cards. There's a Home Depot card and they have 2 Amex cards and a Capital One card and a Citi card. And so they have all of those connected because they use all of them for different purposes in their business. And then QBO Bank Feeds also have something that's referred to as smart learning. And so smart learning is basically if QBO sees something come through from your bank or your credit card that says something like Staples, it has the word Staples, and you create or you already have a vendor name that is called Staples or Office Max or Office Depot or whatever, whatever your local office supply company is. If you assign that expense, to, Office Depot or whatever, and you assign that vendor and you say, this is going to be office supplies or office expenses, and you assign that account to it, QBO will remember the next time it sees something coming in from the bank or the credit card that has a similar bank detail, and it will suggest, hey, the last time we saw something like this, QBO is going to suggest you use this vendor and this account number, or this account, this specific income or expense account. And so it will make suggestions for you. It's not always correct. There are times when it gets things wildly wrong. But there are other options that we have to make sure that when it does see that specific bank detail, it can we can apply rules, so it will always use the same thing. The other really great thing is that you can access the bank feed from your mobile device. So for my bookkeeping service, a lot of what I do, the scope of what I do for my clients is they're kind of they're running their business. They're creating invoices, they're doing whatever they need to do. And then I'm kind of coming in behind them. And what I really do for them is I manage those bank feeds. So they're either handwriting checks, or they're printing checks out of QBO, or they're paying things and they're using their credit cards for their purchases, their business purchases. And so what I'm doing is when those transactions come through their bank, their checking account, or maybe one of their credit cards, I'm either going to match it to a transaction that's already in QuickBooks Online, or I'm going to add it. So that's kind of what I do. And I can set up rules so that I can make sure things get applied correctly. One specific rule that I use is I have a client who they have it's anywhere between a $1,200 to $1,500 charge to UPS every month. And I know that $500 of that is going towards a software expense. So I make sure that the rule is if the bank feed sees UPS, then $500 gets assigned to a computer expense account, and the remainder gets assigned to shipping expenses. So there's a lot of really great things that we can do with the bank feeds in QBO. And I'm going to get to all of that and show you all of that. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just not bother with slides really, because I want to show you how to, from the right out of the gate, how to connect a bank or a credit card. And then I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to manage some of those transactions. So I'm going to flip over here to QuickBooks Online. Your screen is going to look a little bit different because I can't connect a bank account to the test drive. So the test drive that QBO has, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. The test drive is basically a sandbox that you can use if you're not familiar with QuickBooks Online, that you can use to kind of play around. You can't mess anything up in it. You can click around. It has virtually all of the features that an actual paid subscription would have, or even a trial subscription. One of the things you can't do is you can't actually walk through the process of connecting a bank or a credit card. So I'm going to actually do that today. And I'm using QuickBooks Online Accountant. And the reason that I'm doing that is because you can see if I go over here to transactions, and you would do the same thing, it would just look a little bit different. You're going to go over to your left nav and you're going to go over to bank transactions. And it will say, hey, you don't have anything. You're going to see this screen because I don't have any of my accounts connected to QuickBooks Online yet. What I can do is I can connect an account. But before I do that, one of the things that I want to point out is it's a best practice to make sure that you have that account already set up in your chart of accounts. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So because if you're new to QuickBooks Online, it's going to kind of push you to do this right away. But I think it's a best practice to kind of step back and just take a look at your chart of accounts and make sure that you have that account set up and named the way that you want to in your chart of accounts. So the good thing is that if you're in this screen, because this is where we would go to navigate and deal with all of those transactions with the bank feeds, we can actually get to our chart of accounts directly from this screen. So I'm just going to click on chart of accounts. You can see I have all of these different accounts. And again, this is just one of our training tools. And again, I'm logged in as an accountant user, which is why it says accountant up here. you'll see when I go into the test drive, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be very similar, except the left nav is just going to be a little bit different color. You might have just some different options available. So you're not going to have the your practice when you're logged into your own small business QBO account. So you can see I don't have, if I scroll through, I don't have any credit card accounts in here. So those would show up at the top where I have all of my assets and other liabilities. I just have something generically called credit card. I don't want to use that. I want to create a new account because I'm going to connect an American Express account. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to call this Delta Amex. You can put the last 4 digits, you know, I think mine are 09. And then you're going to choose what type of account this is. And this is going to be a credit card. Leave this detail type. That's all we need to do. We want to leave the opening balance is going to be 0. We don't want to mess with that. And then all we need to do is click save, right? So that's it. We're just telling QuickBooks that we have this new credit card. And you can see it's right here, my Delta Amex. I'm a big fan of putting the last 4 digits, especially if you have, you know, like a Chase account, or you have different accounts, you know, different credit card accounts that are maybe with the same type. Like I have one client who has multiple American Express cards, and they have multiple Chase accounts that Chase credit cards that they use. So I want to make sure that when I'm connecting them, I'm connecting the correct account from the bank or credit card company to the correct account in QBO. So I'm a big fan of like adding those last 4 digits to any account, whether it's a checking account or a credit card account. So I've got my credit card account in here. I've got my Delta Amex, right? So that's all set in my chart of accounts. Now I can go back over to my bank transactions. I can do this from this screen, or I could have gone down here to my transactions on my left nav and chosen bank transactions. It's going to take me to this same page. I'm going to choose connect account. So what I like to do in this situation is I want to make sure that I'm using the same login. So I'm going to go and I'm going to copy the actual login, the URL that I use to actually log into that bank or credit card. I'm going to put that in here to search for that. And the reason why is you can see there are quite a few different types of American Express accounts. There could be, we've had issues with TD accounts. We've had clients who've had different TD accounts, and so there's a different URL. So you're going to want to make sure that you just copy and paste and use that to search for the bank or credit card account that you want. There's the Delta Amex. So it's going to say, hey, sign in. And what it means by sign in is it wants you to use, if I were to go to the American Express URL that, you know, to log in to look at the account, it's going to want that same login. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop sharing for 1 second while I put in my username and password. And then I will be right back to show you how to do that. So let me get my, let me just enter these in here, copy and paste these. Now, okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share again so that you guys can see this. So I've entered in and I've logged into the American Express website, and it's saying, hey, we see this one account. Like, do you want to connect that? I'm going to choose yes, I do. And then I want to authorize. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving QBO permission. I'm telling American Express it is okay. I'm authorizing you, American Express, to talk to my QuickBooks Online account. And then I'm just going to return to Intuit. So you can see it's a pretty simple process. And then once I do that, it's going to say, which accounts do you want to connect? I've already chosen it, but I'm just going to reiterate, this is the one. And this is, I'm going to say, this is where I want it to point to. This is the account that I want it associated with in my chart of accounts. I could add new here. I just would rather have that account in my chart of accounts prior to connecting so that I don't have to do this add new and walk through that, because I will say I've seen this just kind of not work and then have to restart the whole process when I try to add a new account from this screen. So best practice is always go to your chart of accounts like I showed you, and then add the account to the chart of accounts. And that way, when you get to this point, you can go down and you can choose, you can go down the list and you can choose that account from your chart of accounts because it's already there. Now, this is the most important part. This is a do as I say, not as I do, because almost every time I connect a new account, I choose the wrong date, right? Like, I can say, when do I want to start? It's gonna, and every bank or credit card is gonna be a little bit different in the options, the date range that it gives you. So it may be a situation where maybe I've been manually entering transactions from forever, and I'm just learning about the bank feeds, or maybe I've converted from a desktop version to QBO, and I've reconciled maybe through the end of July. If that's the case, I know that all of my transactions, at least through the end of July, are going to already be in my chart of accounts or in my books because I reconciled that account. I can't do the bank or the credit card reconciliation unless all of the transactions are there for me to check off. So you want to make sure that you know if it's an existing account and it's not brand new, that you know what date you need to bring the transactions in. And the reason why is if I chose to bring in from the beginning of this year and I have transactions and I've reconciled through the end of July and it's September right now, then I'm going to bring in a whole bunch of transactions that are, if I add them again, I'm duplicating those transactions going all the way to the beginning of the year. And I don't want to do that. So for this case, we want to choose custom. We're going to pretend like I have already done my bank reconciliations through the end of July of this year. So I need to do a custom date range. And so I don't want January. I'm going to say August 1st, right? So I've already done my bank rec through July 31st, 2024. I just need to bring in everything after that and then moving forward. So by choosing custom, I get to pick the date that I want to bring in. And what it's going to do, it's going to pull in all those transactions from this American Express card, but it's only going to bring them going back to the 1st of August. So I'm going to choose that date. I'm just going to connect. And then it's going to wait a couple seconds. It gives you a couple minutes. The longer the date range that you're choosing, the longer it will take to bring in those transactions, obviously, because it either has, a year's worth or it has a month's worth. So it's bringing in those transactions and it's just telling you, hey, yep, it's going to say, yeah, this was very easy. I can submit that. And then I can say done. So when I say done, you can see it's only bringing in 14 transactions. Because I've never done anything with this account, it's saying like, hey, there's no smart learning about this because I haven't processed anything. I haven't told QuickBooks, I haven't added anything or matched anything. One of the first things that I'm going to do though is this description column. I don't want that. I want to change this because this description is just this made up magic stuff. I don't even know where after 20 years, and I think Bryce is logged in, he can vouch for this. We don't understand where QBO gets this description. So the first thing that you want to do once you get it connected is go over here to what we call the grid gear or the baby gear icon. Click on this, and then we want to tell QuickBooks that we want to show the bank details. And so you can see as I toggle that on and off, this description is something that QBO makes up, but the bank details is the actual data that I would see if I logged directly into my American Express account. This is the description for each transaction if I was looking at my Amex account directly on the American Express website. So I always want to change this to show bank details because I'm going to be honest, as much as I love QBO, I don't trust the description because I still, after using this for 20 years, I still cannot figure out where it's coming from. So if you look at this, so here we have Adobe here, Adobe here. If I change this again and turn off bank details, it's, I don't necessarily know. It's kind of giving some stuff, but I just want to see those bank details. So I want to see what it's showing me and what I would see if I got onto the the credit card or bank account. The other thing that I want to do is make sure that this copy bank detail to memo. So the other thing that I want to make sure is that whatever the bank detail is bringing in, so that description that would be on the bank website or on the credit card website, I want to make sure that QBO is copying that to my memo field in the transaction. So once I have this connected, and you can go through all of your accounts and do this, once I have these connected, I can now choose to sort each one of these columns. I just click on the column header, and I can sort it by date. I can sort it by bank details, so it will put like amounts. I can sort it by the money in or money out. So there's a lot of different ways that we can deal with those transactions and kind of manipulate them. The other thing that I like to do is I like to go to this grid gear icon, and I like to turn on grouping. So this makes it easy for me to deal with like transactions. And the grouping basically is sort of like the sorting. So if I say bank detail, I want to sort by bank detail, it's going to group. So you can see it's saying, okay, there's two things that are, Adobe, there's a bunch of, payments, there's some QuickBooks subscriptions. And this is my real American Express account. So I just want to let you guys know, like these are my actual transactions. So you can see, we've got some Microsoft, we've got HostGator, Disney Plus, that's clearly a personal charge that did not get moved from my American Express. So what I can do with each one of these transactions is for these, I can, when they're grouped like this, I can deal with all four of these all at once. So I can choose this header. I know that these are all payments from my checking account. So I can say edit, and then I can say that this is a transfer and that it's coming from, and I don't have a bank account in here. All I have is my PayPal bank. So we're just going to pretend like that it's coming from my actual checking account, and I can apply. So now what it's doing is saying, okay, these are all transfers and they're coming from the checking account. I could also go up here and choose edit, and then I can, do that again and say, hey, this is, maybe this is coming from, I paid these payments out of my, I don't know if I have an owner equity. I don't know, but if I paid it from my personal, I could say maybe it's like owner equity or something like that. But we're going to just choose my PayPal here, and I can say that this is, I could add a vendor name, and I can say this is, maybe American Express payment, and I can add that new vendor. So I can add the name, make it a vendor. It's going to be American Express payment, and I can save. And then I want to assign this as a transfer. I can also choose to apply and accept. So if I just choose apply, it's making a liar of me. It's not showing me the payee, but I bet if I click into here, oh, you know what? It's a transfer. That's why, because I made it a transfer. There's no vendor name. So if I did a credit card payment, then it would show the name. So we can just leave that as the transfers because they're going to be coming from it. We can say, okay. The other thing that I can do here is I can do something similar, and I can say that this is Adobe, right? I got that in there. And do I have a computer expense? We'll just call this office, maybe office. Do I have software? Let's see what we have. It's a demo account, so you never know what kind of account. So we'll just call this office expenses, and I can choose apply. So now, because it's not a transfer, when you're using a transfer, you can't put in a customer or vendor name, but I can choose the payee. It's now office expenses, and I can go ahead and I can say accept, right? So you can see this, they charged, and then I had to get a refund for it because I had canceled my account in February. They still charge me. And then I can go ahead and accept. One of the things that's kind of cool about this is if I go over here to my categorize tab, you can see these are all the transactions that I've categorized. Maybe I might have made some sort of mistake, and I need to undo those. Let's say I don't want these to be transfers, right? I can say I want to undo all of these payments here, these 4 payments. I can check those and say undo. And what it does is it puts those back over here in my for review tab, right? So now maybe instead of a transfer, I can make these, make this a credit card payment. And now I can assign, if I make it it's PayPal Bank, and the vendor is going to be that American Express payment. So because I'm making it a credit card payment transaction type versus a transfer, I can assign a vendor name to it. I can also say, I want to create a rule. So whenever I see, and I'm going to say mobile payment, I'm going to copy this, right? So I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to choose create rule. So I'm going to call this Amex payment. And I'm going to say this is for any money in for my Delta American Express. I don't want all bank accounts. I just want my Delta American Express. If the bank text, when you're creating a rule, you want to make sure that you choose bank text, not description, because remember, description is like a bag of magic beans that QuickBooks Online is trying to sell you. And it doesn't really mean anything. So you always want to use that bank text. If the bank text contains mobile payment, we want to make sure that QBO assigns it as a credit card type transaction or credit card payment. That the bank account is always coming from my operating account, which in this case we're pretending is my PayPal bank account. We want the payee to be that vendor that I created. I always want to delete that because if I don't delete the memo, then that memo, when I'm creating a rule, is going to be added to every single transaction. And what I want is the actual bank detail added to the memo. The last thing is I don't want QBO to auto add this because maybe this is a new connection that I'm creating. I don't want it to just automatically post it to my general ledger, to my books. I want to be able to look at it and see it and make sure that it's coming from it is definitely coming from the checking account, and it's not maybe, a client has made a mistake and paid their business account from their personal account or something like that. I just am not a big fan of the auto add unless it is something that is just absolutely cut and dry. Like an example of an auto add that I've used is when I used to have to travel all the time for Intuit. I knew that if I had a transaction on my Delta American Express card that said Delta Airlines, I 100% knew that that was business travel because being from the Midwest, nobody here flies on vacation. We all road trip. And my family specifically, we never flew on vacation. So it would never have been personal travel. It's always going to be business travel. So that's one very small example, like one example of when I would auto add it. Like I just knew if it was Delta Airlines, it was going to be business travel. So then I can go ahead and I can save this. And so now you can see that I have some rules here, right? So it's saying, hey, you created this rule that says when it says mobile payment, it's going to assign a credit card payment from the checking account that you assigned. It's going to assign this vendor. And if I click into this, I can even click and see there's a link to the rule, and I can go ahead and take a look at the rule. So I can see it, I can change it. If I say, you know what, I don't want this, I want to change this, I want to, make some other, edits to this, I can go ahead and do that. But when you see that rule, and if I sort by categorize or match, anything that's a rule or it's matching something in QBO is going to show up at the top of the list, and I can click all of these and just go ahead and say accept. So I'm going to flip back over. I'm actually going to log out of this because I want to go show you some of the match transactions, and I need to use the QuickBooks Online test drive. So I'm just going to search for QuickBooks Online test drive. And if you search for that, you can see right here, the very first link is test drive QuickBooks Online. There are two test drives or sandbox or sample files, whatever you want to call them. There's one for QuickBooks Online Plus, and then there's also one that you can check out, QuickBooks Online Advanced. So I'm just going to choose the plus one, QuickBooks Online Plus. I'm going to tell it I'm not a robot. It's going to make me do a CAPTCHA. it's probably going to make me do it 10 times. Oh, I got it on the first try. I never get it on the first try, so I'm excited about that. And then I just click continue. The thing about the test drive is if you already have a QBO account, you want to make sure that you're logged out of your QBO account, because logging into the test drive is going to log you out anyway. So you can see where it looks a little bit different. The test drive, the name of the company is called Craig's Landscape. Or Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. And you can see that left nav looks a little bit different because I'm not using QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant. I'm not logged in as an accountant anymore. I'm logged into a small business account. So it's a little bit darker and you don't see the, the your practice and some of the other stuff. So I want to go to the same place though. I want to go to the transactions over here to my bank transactions. And the reason why I want to come over here is because I want to show you what it looks like with multiple. Once I walk you through the setup like I just did, I want to show you what it looks like to have multiple accounts connected and what happens when you have matching, transactions that are already in QuickBooks that you can match to. And it's just, there's just a lot more here to show. So you can see here, I have 3 different accounts that are connected. I have a checking account, I have a savings account, and I have a credit card account. The cool thing is when you click on one of these like cards up here at the top, you're only going to see the transactions that QBO has pulled in from that specific account. So all of these transactions that you see down here, these are all just specific to the checking account, right? So you can see there's quite a few transactions that have matches. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do, I'm going to go over here and make sure that I show bank details, as I don't want to see that description, and I want to make sure that I copy the bank detail to the memo, and I also want to turn on grouping. So those are the first 3 things that I do. I have someone that works for me. They prefer not to have the grouping on. That's his choice. I also am going to want to check and make check numbers. If you have clients, or if you, not clients, but if you are using checks, you're handwriting checks or you're printing checks, you're going to want to make sure that the check number is turned on. If you don't ever write checks or print checks, then you don't need to worry about it. I still have a lot of clients that handwrite checks, so I'm going to turn that on. To make this easier to see, I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to click on that so that we can see what we're looking at. And so now this is sorted by date. I want to group it by categorization. So what it's going to do, it's going to show me everything that it's matched. And what this means is these are transactions that are already in QBO, and QBO sees these transactions come through the bank feed and says, oh, this is a match. So you can see here, some of these are checks. If I scroll down here, this is check 70, right? If I go back up here, this is why it's important to say, I want to look at the check number. I can scroll down and it should show the check, but it's not, maybe because it's a test drive, but the check number would show up here in this column. So for all of these are probably going to match. I can click into some of these and say, yep, this is a deposit, this matches. The date of the deposit here from the bank feed it's pulling in matches the date of the deposit that I have in QBO. But if we go up here, we have a couple that it's saying, hey, this could be 2 different things. I'm not really sure which one this is. So if I scroll through and I look at this, I may not know exactly what this is just by looking at it, but because I brought in, I changed it to show the bank detail. The bank detail is saying, this is from the bank. This is not something, this column right here, this is not something that is in QBO. That's where the payee is coming in. So if I click here, I want to make sure that yes, this is matching because this is an expense to PAM sites, right? And that bank detail is matching what is right here, and this is what I have in QBO, so I can say go ahead and match that. Now you'll notice that it automatically, the other $75, because I matched the first $75, now it knows that this one matches this transaction, this bill payment to Books by Bessie. Now we can go up here to this other one where it's saying $19.99. I want to look at the date, right? So my bank detail, it says squeaky clean car wash. Both of these say Squeaky Clean Car Wash, but this is where I need to look at the date. So the transaction in QBO is dated 7/31, and so does the transaction that I'm bringing in from my bank feed. So I want to manually match that. You can't do like a bulk match if any of the transactions, there's possibilities where it says that there's two possibilities. It won't let you do that. But the rest of them, I can go through, these all match. I'm going to say yep. So with these 18 transactions, I click once and I say accept, good to go. And now I can deal with the ones that I have left here. So you can see I have a bunch that are all that I'll say A1 rental. This is where I'm going to maybe create a bank rule, and I'm going to sort it by my bank detail because these are all A1 rental. So with these, I'm going to say they're all the same bank detail. I want to go in and edit. I'm going to see if I have A1 rental. I do not. So I'm going to say A1 rental company. We'll just make it up. And I'm going to say I'm going to add. I'm going to make sure that it's a vendor. I want to copy that, right? And I'm going to go ahead and save. So I've created my vendor name, and now I want to see if I have an equipment rental. Do I have an equipment rental? I do have an equipment rental. I have an equipment rental expense account, and I'm going to go ahead and apply. So now you can see I've assigned the payee. It's now being posted to equipment rental. You can see maybe this was a deposit that we got back, or maybe we, I don't know, got some sort of refund. I can go ahead and say accept. And that's kind of how you do this kind of stuff with Hicks Hardware. It's already in there. It recognizes maybe the last time the bank memo said Hicks Hardware, I posted it to this vendor, so it's going to remember that, but maybe it doesn't remember what expense account, or maybe I've used multiple over the last couple months. If I want to see how I used this, I can choose this categorization history, and it will show me what I've been using. It's saying, hey, you haven't used this in 12 months. So what I would do in this situation is I would probably open a new tab, and I would go over to my vendor list, because I've used it before. I've used Hicks Hardware, but I haven't used it in the last 12 months. So I want to go over here, and I'm going to sit. There's a little bit of a cat fight. Hold on. Hold on one moment. I need to mute. I'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully that got worked out. If I search for Hicks Hardware, we can see there's Hicks Hardware. If I click into this, it's going to show me the transaction list, right? So you can see I've used job materials or landscaping services. So I've used, the reason why is because I've used multiple transactions. We're just going to choose the last one that I used, which was decks and patios. I'm going to just copy this, and then I'm going to go back over here to my bank transactions, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that and just choose the last expense account. So you would probably want to see what the receipt was, or have a copy of the receipt to make sure. That is always very helpful if you have a vendor that's already in there, to go in to the vendor list and look at what you've been using that vendor for in the past. So I'm just going to go ahead and say add category. Yes, it is. Decks and patios. There we go. And I'm going to say add. So easy peasy to do that. One of the things that I do want to comment on is when I created a new tab, I have a lot of things bookmarked in my browser. So that's a thing that you can do if you're new to QBO. I have this vendor list. I can say, hey, I want to bookmark this, and I just want this to be on my bookmarks toolbar, and then I can click save. And so there's that bookmark, so that when I go to a new tab in QBO, let's close this, I can go over here and I can just get right to the expenses. This was actually my vendor list, so I would probably want to edit this bookmark to say vendors, right? And so that would take me, or I can just say, hey, I want this to be my vendors list, and it takes me right to the vendor list, as opposed to, I mean, it's taking me to Hicks Hardware, but if I wanted to bookmark mileage, I can click my bookmark, it's going to put it on my bookmarks toolbar, and I can say mileage. So wherever I am in QBO, you can see I've bookmarked search. I can go back over to the mileage and whatever I bookmark. And you can create folders. Most browsers allow you to create folders if you need to. And you can see I have all of my purchase stuff here. I have the purchase order, the bills, pay bills, expense, and vendors. Those are all like in one folder. So it makes it really easy for me to find stuff. And then if I need to, I can just delete those bookmarks if I don't think I'm going to need to use those again. So if I go back over here to the bank transactions, we'll go over to our MasterCard account, and you can see, again, if we sort this, what happens if I try and match, right? So when I mentioned it's not going to be able to match if there's more than one transaction that it might be, it won't let you match it. So you can see it doesn't even let me, the accept is not even an option, but if I uncheck these, that becomes an option and I can accept the ones that it does match. And then I just need to deal with each one of these. So this one is the 7th. So I'm matching my dates. Squeaky clean car wash. And now there's only one left and I could go ahead and choose match. And then I can just, again, add the vendors and do what I need to do to get, just deal with these transactions. Here is a deposit, right? So I'm matching that. Pretty simple. Do we have any? This one is a easy peasy, quick webinar. We have about 20 minutes left. I'm just going to scroll through my screens to make sure that we've covered everything. Matching, adding, grouping, batch processing. Any questions that you guys might have?
Yeah, Stacy, I do have one. Just when you were doing the auto add, can you do that for specific transactions to have it auto add and turn it off for others, or it is a blanket statement when you're bringing that in?
Yes and yes. The answer is yes to both of that. So here's a perfect example of like Amazon, right? So I can create a rule. Let's say, and this is just made up, right? Like, let's say I know that if, let's go create a rule. I'm going to go over here to my rules. So I'm going to go to rules and I'm going to create a new rule. I can say Amazon, and we'll say checking, right? So if this money out, and I can just say, just for my checking account, if Amazon is coming out of my checking account, and the bank text says Amazon, that I want this to be a transfer, and maybe this is, do we have, we'll put this to, I'm going to create a new account called owner equity, right? I know that if I use maybe a debit card, right, that is attached to my checking account or something, I don't know, I'm just making this up, right? So you can set up different criteria. So I can say if this is Amazon, this is going to be a transfer, this is always a personal account, right? It's always personal if it's paid with the business checking account. If this is just an example. I can also say for all bank accounts, if the bank text contains Amazon and the amount is greater than $50, I can say I want this to be an expense and I want to leave this as uncategorized, right? Because I may not know what it is, right?
So under the auto add, you're kind of creating your own rule for that specific transaction. I've never
Well, the
used the
auto
auto.
add can be applied to any rule. but I don't recommend auto add unless you're 100% sure. So
Yeah.
another way that we would use auto add is we had a client years ago who would use his business, one of his business credit cards to go to he lived in the Chicago area to pay for the aquarium. He'd take his kids to the aquarium. And so if he would see it in the bank feed, he would try to post it to like professional development or like cost of goods sold. And then we would see that when we were reviewing his books. And so what we finally did was we created a rule that said if it says, if the bank text says aquarium, then post it to owner draw and auto add it. And that way we were like protecting himself from himself so that he just never even saw it in the bank feed and it would always get applied correctly.
Yeah.
So, and you can just set up different criteria. So like for this one, I'm going to say if it's over $50, I want it to be uncategorized for any bank account. I can create another rule that is, I can call this Amazon over $50. And I can say for any money out for all bank accounts, if the bank text says Amazon, and I can add a condition where if the amount is greater than $50, no, I can say less than $49.99, then I want this to be an expense. I want it to be, I want the payee to be Amazon. Oops, sorry. I want the category to be office expenses. Sorry. Office expenses. So I know if it's less than $50, I know that it's always going to be, an office supply.
Yeah.
And
I've
I
never
can choose
used
all that.
auto add because I feel like I'm going in and correcting too many things.
Exactly. That's why I'm not a fan. So if I go over here with these two transactions and I go to my Amazon and oh, this is money in. It's not a money out. So this is saying Amazon got Amazon software. They got a refund. So this wouldn't work for this one. But let's say I go change these to Lara's lamination. And I'll show you how these work.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you could create individual rules like that. So I do like that piece.
Yeah, so we'll say this is Lara's lamination. This is over 50. And if, all right, save. Oh, sorry, it doesn't like special characters. So, and then if I go change this to under 50, change that. Add new. Yeah, probably. There we go. Save. And I also have to change that. And that's auto add. So add in. And okay. So now I've changed these so they'll actually work. So what I'm saying here is if the bank text says Lara's lamination and it is, and the amount, right, is over $50, I want it to uncategorize it and not add, not auto add.
Gotcha.
And then the other one says if it's under 50, I want you to assign it and you can auto add it. So now if I go over to my bank transactions, you can see here the rules being applied where it's posting it, it's leaving it uncategorized so I know I have to do something with it. But if it was, anything under $50, $49.99 or less than that, it would automatically assign it to office expense.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Do you guys have any other questions?
Thank you, Stacy. That was so informative because even if you have used QuickBooks, all these tips and tricks are so helpful and save us so much time. I had a quick question, maybe you can highlight, and that is on the credit card. If a business owner has a subordinate card, for example, there's a parent card and a subordinate card, assigns it to some employee, and he wants to track it as one card so that you can reconcile it as one account. Is there something specific that you could do to make sure that that would happen?
Yeah, so there is a very specific way, and I'm looking for this. I'm gonna put in a link that you can see, and I'll open the page as well. So because I just don't have enough time to kind of go through like how to do this setup, but there's a very specific way that you can set it up. And what I can do is, if I can get to the chat, can't get to the chat here, WebEx. Maybe I'll ask Bryce if he can put it in the chat. I'm going to give him the link and then ask him if he can. There. So there's a specific way that you do it. And if I just sent that to Bryson, so maybe he can post that in the chat for me. The link to this. So the way that you would do it is there's going to be a parent account, which is like the main Chase. Like if you have like Chase accounts, and then you have, you can see there's Jarrett, there's John, there's Peggy. So I have a client that has this set up, and they have like, I think 6 sub accounts with their Chase credit card for the different employees. So you have the parent Chase account, and then each one of the users, the employees, are going to be sub accounts under that credit card account. And so you would want to set all of those up in your chart of accounts first. This is, again, another reason why it's really important to make sure that the accounts are set up in the chart of accounts before you actually do the connection. And then when you start connecting them, when you log into the bank, some banks allow you to connect just the parent and then pull all of the transactions in. I know for a fact that Chase does require you, the last time I did it, to connect each one of the sub accounts. So this, basically this link is a step-by-step on how to do, to set each one of those up. I mean, it gives you, like, this KB article is really like, here's what you need to do. And then it even shows you how to go through and reconcile all of those.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's a great question.
Okay, any other questions? Please send them in the chat or unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay. Seems like we have no other questions. Thank you all for joining us today. You will be getting a link with a survey that you could fill out and let us know your experience with our training. We have some upcoming webinars that I would like to share. Believe it or not, we have one coming up today at 3 o'clock, Hiring Smart. Some others that are coming up after that, Employment Law 101. September 5th, we have Your Mission and How It Reflects on Your Tax Returns. September 17th, again, QBO, Stacy will be here. How to enter equipment purchase with a related loan. 17th, Tough Conversations. And 18th and 25th, we have some others that are coming up. So what you can do is go to spdc.nctc.edu and register for these webinars. You can also get contact information and schedule an appointment with an advisor. You have plenty of resources for small business owners. And today we'd like to appreciate the funding organizations, the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and the North Central Texas College. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This ends the webinar.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.